So here we are again, this time with a double feature. Now, since I played Secret of Mana first, that's the one we're going to be talking about initially, and then we'll move on to Shadow of the Colossus, which is the one I was looking forward to more. Now, for those of you who don't know, Secret of Mana is a remake of the original Secret of Mana for the Super Nintendo. And being a remake, Secret of Mana has brought the best and worst of the Super Nintendo back for modern audiences. One of the ways that Secret of Mana shows its Super Nintendo heritage is that the plot keeps along at a very fast rate, something that was extremely common for Super Nintendo games, as the small amount of memory on the cartridge meant they had to try and fit everything in as quickly as possible in order to get the full game on the one cartridge. This has both its positive and negative points. The positive is that it's very easy to get into the story, as you're constantly getting new information and nothing is dragging out too long, which means you're far less likely to get bored of the plot as it's not dragging out as some modern games do. However, it also has a lot of negative effects in that the story is compressed quite significantly, and thus a lot of the more emotional scenes don't have the necessary time to breathe and aren't quite as impactful for it. This probably isn't helped by the fact that by today's standards, a lot of the adult NPCs seem to be suffering some sort of mental retardation. To give the most obvious example I can think of, in the opening 30 minutes of Secret of Mana, you'll have fallen off a log into a river that was just deep enough to avoid killing you, but also just shallow enough that you didn't drown, after which you'll wander around for a little bit before pulling out the legendary Mana Sword, which was also acting as a barrier for your local village and stopping monsters from mauling everybody. Great job, you. Once you get back to the village, naturally everyone is very upset about this. After all, now they're about to get eaten by monsters. I'd be pretty angry at you as well. Thanks for ruining everything, you fucking prick. However, very soon after you get back to the village and everyone's starting to hate on you for picking up the Mana Sword and basically dooming everybody, the ground will open up and you'll be dropped into a boss room where you'll start your very first boss fight. Now, you've already had a little bit of tutorial for the combat. By tutorial, I mean the NES era of tutorial, where it was figure it out yourself or don't play the goddamn game. And while yeah, that can be somewhat rewarding at times, I must admit it was a little bit annoying in Secret of Mana's case, because I always feel like I'm missing something. But more on that later. Now, once you've been dropped into this massive hole and started to fight the boss, eventually you'll manage to kill the damn thing, because it's really dumb. I'm serious, I'm actually quite concerned about the AI. I don't know if it was ported directly from the NES, but I suspect it might have been. Because no matter what kind of boss I'm fighting, it's always worrying when the most successful strategy I can find is walk around the thing, bury my face in its ass, and slash at it until it turns around. And once it did turn around, I could literally repeat the same attack over and over again just by walking around it and hitting it again. Nothing changed. I won the first boss battle by taking no damage by understanding the legendary, insanely difficult tactic of walk around and stab it in the asshole. That is not tactics. That only counts as tactics if lining up 4 things correctly and connect 4 counts as tactics. Does anyone else remember when boss encounters used to be a test of everything you've learned up to that point? Granted, it is the first boss and you haven't learnt much, but still, it should be a little bit more difficult than that. On the side note of other things about Secret of Mana that really should have been implemented in this remake, I would also recommend giving us a dodge button. As the game currently is, there is no way for the player to have a dedicated way of dodging the enemy. The only way you really have is by walking around them. And while that can be used as a sort of semi-dodge control, it would be much more efficient if we had a direct button that, I don't know, rolled us perhaps in some sort of dodge roll? Something I assume you guys have heard of, considering it's been a mainstay of gaming for I don't even know fucking how long at this point. Because other than walking around the attacks and hoping the tracking doesn't screw up and hit you anyway, that's about the only way you have to dodge. And that's really kind of annoying, because the only other way you have to dodge is a random number that the computer will occasionally turn up that will have your character backflip out of the way of an attack. And again, well yes, that is cool to watch. I'd feel much more interested in the combat if I could actually control the dodge myself, because to be honest with you, the combat's pretty goddamn monotonous. Yes, I'm aware it was NES era combat, and we were very much limited by the system at the time, but still, it's 2018, guys, come on, we could have changed a few things. It's a remake, not a remaster. Anyway, back on the note of mental retardation of the adults in this particular game. After we beat the first boss and we climb out of the hole, we're greeted by Gemma, a knight. He immediately recognizes that we have the legendary Mana Sword and goes, oh, that's not good, that thing should be stuck in the ground. Only the chosen hero should be able to pull it out in a time of great danger. Quite clearly the sword isn't working because you've pulled it out of the ground. Now, ignoring the fact that a legendary hero could be anybody, and this is quite clearly a sword in the stone allegory, he immediately notes that the sword must not be working for you to have pulled it out. Gemma then proceeds to tell you to meet him at the water temple so you can restore the sword's full power. I'm sorry, you just told me the sword wasn't working. Why aren't you taking it? You're the knight. You're the one who's trained in combat, not to mention several decades older and probably much better at fighting than this, I don't know, 14-year-old boy. The hell aren't you taking the sword off of him? You've just said it's not working. The normal rules do not apply if that is the case. What the hell is wrong with you, man? Sorry about that, but the mental retardation of some of these characters really does piss me off quite a bit. Now, let's be honest, we're all very clear on the reason our characters kept the sword. It's plot convenience. We need the sword so that a video game can happen. Okay, that's fine. Again, we paid for this. It's a video game. We know what's going on. My main problem comes from the fact that most games at least try to justify why this plot convenience has happened, whereas Secret of Mana is basically happy to go, yeah, whatever, you can just keep the sword and move on. Well, not such a glaring problem back in the Super Nintendo era, where this was actually quite a common thing to do. These days, it does feel a bit like a glaring plot hole, because any sane person would take the legendary weapon off of the child, not leave it with them. But again, it's a video game, it's plot convenience, we can move past that, especially if the game at least tried to hand-wave it. Unfortunately, it doesn't, which does leave something of a glaring plot hole, at least for me. But anyway, let's move on to other things that have been happening in the retarded world of retarded retards. The one thing that is absolutely awesome about Secret of Mana is the fact that you cross large distances of terrain by being fired out of a goddamn cannon. And that is incredible. Nothing will ever make that not cool. And the note of large expanses, all the graphics in Secret of Mana are very vibrant and cartoony, almost like Walt Disney had been jizzing into the lead designer's paint tool. All the characters, and indeed all the environments in general, are very pleasing to look at and have a nice aesthetic quality, in addition to all the monsters being colourful, cartoony, and very friendly, which makes the game excellent for younger audiences. However, while it is excellent for younger audiences, and probably a really nice way to get your kids involved in gaming, it's probably not going to be the game for any adults, because Secret of Mana is very much a product of its time. The narrative for Secret of Mana was very simple and straightforward, or at least it was simple and straightforward for as far as I got. Maybe there's a twist later on, I wouldn't know, I got bored of the game and put it down. Shit, I suppose I just gave my opinion away there, didn't I? Yeah, okay, you guys got me. This is a double feature because one of these games bored the shit out of me, and I've just given away which one it is. Because for all of Secret of Mana's positive points, such as its art style and its music, there came a lot of negative points, mostly due to the combat, which has gotten very grindtacular and monotonous. And since combat's what you're mainly going to be doing, with Secret of Mana being under the action-adventure title, that's really a very large problem. As for what my main problem with the combat was, it simply wasn't very interesting. All I was doing was moving around, whacking the opponent, walking around them, and whacking them from the side, and I repeated that ad to infinitum until they died. This strategy did not change even when I got new weapons, because even though the damage would dip or perhaps rise, and the range would be slightly different, the fact of the matter was that combat was the same. The only thing I was doing was either hit the enemy from the front, walk around, hit them again from the side, or vastly more likely, I'd hit them with a 100% stamina attack which knocked them back. As soon as they were on the ground, they were basically stuck there and stun-locked, because I'd just wait for 100% stamina again and hit them a second time. So long as I could repeat this process, it seemed I could stun-lock any enemy except a boss to death. And I'm sorry, but I don't find that particularly interesting in a combat system. Games like Bloodborne and Dark Souls get away with simple combat systems for a very particular reason. That reason is that every single enemy can kill you, and thus you are in constant danger and have to use everything at your disposal in order to survive. Secret of Mana does not have that constant tension. Yes, technically any enemy can kill you, but the only way they're really going to be able to do that is if you're A, being an idiot, or B, underleveled or under-armored for the area. And before anyone decides to point out, I am very much aware that both Dark Souls and Bloodborne have a far more complex combat system than Secret of Mana. However, I'm trying to make a point, not split hairs. And that was the main problem of Secret of Mana, at least for me. The combat system couldn't hold my attention, and while the plot did clip along at a nice fast pace, I couldn't help but constantly question the decisions of basically every retarded NPC I met. Because the only reason I can see half of the people doing some of the things they've done is that they've suffered a recent fucking brain hemorrhage. And while I think about it, what's with all those weird turban guys that run all the shops? Is that how Japanese people see Indian people? Because wow, I'm not even touching that kettle of fish if that's the case. I mean, goddamn. These guys are always dancing like there's some sort of weird Bollywood special, and it was really creepy in two very specific cases. The first one is where he's in a village where the Manasaur had just been pulled out, and while you're about to get mauled by monsters, why the hell are you dancing, man? And the second time it was weird when then the shopkeeper cheerfully informs you that everyone's basically getting their soul sucked out, and by the way, you might want to be careful about that. But sorry, I have to dance. I know it's a weird thing to harp on about, but it was really weird for me. Anyway, we're now leaving the land of retarded retards for another land, far across the ocean that is dismal and dark, and, well, full of other retarded retards, but we'll get to that in a second. Yes, because in a double feature, at least one of them has to be the good game, and in this case, it's Shadow of the Colossus, the one I enjoyed a lot more. Now, Shadow of the Colossus was considered a landmark title back on the PS2, and I never got a chance to play it, which might actually have worked out fortunately for me because I get to experience it now in high definition. Unfortunately, I had the ending spoiled for me years ago, but I'll try to ignore that for now. Now, in Shadow of the Colossus, you play as Wanda. I'm not sure if that name is ever actually said in the game itself, but it's what I've been told is called, so let's go with that for now. Consider some of the choices he's made, I would have gone with Moron, personally, but hey, that's just me. Now, the main thrust behind Shadow of the Colossus' plot is that your main character is going to the Forbidden Lands to resurrect his lost love. And in the process of doing so, he makes a bargain with Dormini. I'm not sure if that's how you say it or not, but I'm going with that for now. And in my opinion, the weird Shadow Demon should have been enough of a reason not to make a deal with this thing, because weird Shadow Demons inside someone's temple is usually a sign of some pretty bad juju. But since common sense is something Wanda seems to completely lack, he makes the deal anyway, and agrees to slay 15 Colossi in exchange for resurrecting his dead lover. Wonder mate, I know you might want your lover back, it might be the best sex of your life, but seriously, dump the bitch, put a gravestone on there, throw some flowers down each week if you really feel that bad. That's how the rest of us deal with our problems, you can do it too. But naturally, Wanda wouldn't listen to that advice anyway, even if he got it, so we go out to slay the 15 Colossi. It's very impressive to see these things just even walking around. It makes you feel a real sense of loss when you actually have to kill one. And also the weird black smoke stuff that comes out of each Colossi after you kill it and slams into Wanda like a freight train up his asshole probably isn't doing him any favours. But according to Damani, that just means the whole deal thing's working, which is even more reason not to do this, because again, black smoke things going inside you is bad juju. Remember, Wanda, no means no. But anyway, while I haven't had as much time with Shadow of the Colossus as I have had with Secret of Mana, it's still been a very enjoyable game so far, and honestly the one I think you're probably better off spending your money on. While there are no enemies out in the world besides the actual Colossi themselves, it is also very enjoyable just to ride across. The scenery is beautiful and gives you a chance to contemplate what you're doing, even if most of the time spent contemplating the fact you're killing giant Colossi usually ends with, "For fuck's sake, Wanda, stop it!" But even with the fact that this world is apparently also full of retarded retards, it doesn't change the fact that Shadow of the Colossus is a hell of a lot of fun, and I'll be going back to it until I finish the story no matter how long it takes. And in my opinion, that is the mark of a good game, because as long as the game can keep you interested and keep you coming back, it has succeeded as a form of entertainment and is definitely worth your money. I'm Lenny from Balloon and Shiny Shop signing off from the real world full of retarded retards. Go Team Retard!